Welcome to the Know Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Vipul Basania, and today's guest is Mirza. Com is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and business mentor. He owns and manages over 30 companies and has spoken on the TEDx stage before. And he's currently doing a lot of work around the world doing the Billion Dollar Mastermind, and also hosts one of the biggest fitness expos in Dubai as well, among many, many other things. So Com, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So one of the things I actually wanted to get into was your view on failure. You've got a bit of an epic story. So I just wondered, what does it mean to fail to you?
Failure to me is almost like a prerequisite. You know, it's if you're trying to do something in a specific space or in a business or in any challenge in life, and if you don't fail, you don't learn, you know, especially if you're trying to do something big. Because from my experience, I don't think there's anything that has taught me more than failure has, you know, and mentors are great. You know, they shortcut a lot of things. Books help, you know, attending things help, you know, but what failure does is it really makes you internally reflect on who you really are, what you're really capable of. You know, you have all these internal conversations and dialogue that happens with you and your true inner self, you know, and I think that it gives you true clarity on if you really want to be successful in what you're attempting to do. So if you're not really pushing the limit to fail a little bit, you know, and I don't want to say trying to fail because no one wants to try to fail, you know, but you know, trying to fail in some small, simple ways where you know what's going to happen after that failure is going to be like a resurrection of your own renewed commitment and potential and determination and things like that. Then I don't think you take it serious enough, you know. And if you want to do something big, failure is by far the best tasting fruit out there to really get you energized.
It's no, you're completely right, and but it makes it difficult for those who I guess who are starting out or who failed maybe once or twice already. It's just like, should I go at it again? You know, what if the same thing happens again? And you know, we'll get into your story, but I think you know you've faced that enough times to now be able to tell other people how to mentally deal with that sort of thing. So, what would you say to someone who's either starting out or they've maybe failed once or twice already and are considering possibly quitting?
So it's really simple. You're gonna fail, you know, hands down. I don't know any great success, and you can go through the stories of pretty much everybody. And there's no great success who didn't have a great, spectacular failure journey that they don't talk too much about. You know, mine, unfortunately, I love to talk about because when I meet entrepreneurs around the world, I speak on stages, different things like that. They can't connect with the fact that someone has a lot more wealth than them or someone's a lot more successful than them because they're not in that same space. You know, there's a big gap in between who that person is on stage and their story and then the person sitting in the crowd struggling, you know, working on his business. But they immediately connect with the pain inside the story, you know, and it's like a common denominator. They can immediately say, well, man, I'm just as human as that person. You know, I'm going through these sleepless nights right now, these sacrifices, this hard work. Like if that person did it and look where they are today and they kept on persisting, then it really gives them tremendous hope at the fact that they're not alone in what they're experiencing, you know, and they need to just keep at it and not give up and stuff. All the best success that I've ever had never happened off starting a company and just taking it straight to the top and becoming super successful. It happened off the back of failure, you know, and most people, like, this is going to get really deep really quickly, but you know, most people, if you look at the government, the education system, the universities, the institutions, primary school, high school, college, like how the education, banking, financial, government system is designed, it's designed to really imprison people's potential mentally, spiritually, physically. And people are terrified of making mistakes, of failing, stuff like that. If you look at just from schooling alone, if I get a bad grade, a big fat F goes on my test or like, you know, my exam or whatever it is, my paper. And it's like a demoralizing, degrading thing, you know, like I have to sit there and look at it and basically have to tell myself I'm stupid because I didn't pass this one test in life where, you know, it doesn't really make a big difference in the grand scheme of things. So we're taught, trained, conditioned, programmed to look at failure as the end of the world, as the most negative, devastating thing that can happen to us. And when it does, we're taught, trained, and conditioned to take that as, something that should make us quit, should make us give up, should make us abandon our dreams and our goals, and really shrink away from ever trying some of these things again. Like, it's a traumatizing experience. But it's the complete opposite. All that conditioning, training, programming that we've been given from society and schools and education is literally, it was designed for us to be, government assets, these 9 to 5 workers who just go out there and try to make a living and pay their taxes, and don't really contribute anything significant to the world other than like doing a job really well, and so it's like all entrepreneurs, failure is the best teacher, and failure is it's almost like a welcoming thing, that we don't, on the surface, no one likes it. We're just programmed to hate failure, to even, want to get close to it. But those who get familiar with it, who understand it, the experience and the prospect of what it does, and then how to turn it around, those people are not afraid of failure at all, because they know that it's literally the greatest thing that has happened. I know so many entrepreneurs that were in their journey of launching a company, product, or service, and somewhere along the way, their original plan just died and failed. It crashed and burned, like it was horrible, and from the birth of those ashes, they pivoted somewhere, and then they created something that just took off, and if you kind of look at it, if they didn't go that deep and that far into trying to succeed one way, they never would have found the pivot somewhere, and they never would have ended up where they are. And so it's just it's a horrible thing that society makes it sound like failure is the worst tasting thing to ever experience. But it literally, it's the complete opposite. It's just, there's not enough training and education, out there from entrepreneurs and successful people. It's not in academic schools. Teachers don't know about it, and so it's really hard to tell someone, well, hey, I encourage you to fail, because what, you're going to really, really learn, but it's just, you're fighting 99% of society's brainwashing and marketing and programming. And it's just a historical thing, right? They've been doing it since they were kids, and 30,000 hours of schooling, so it's hard to deprogram or unprogram something, that's just been worked on so hard for so long.
It's really crazy, because it's almost like you're having an external stranger test you on something that you may or may not be good at, and then that is then the definition of your character, or how successful you're going to be, or how far you're going to progress. And it's like, the more you think about it, the more you think, it's like, I've never met this person, and they're meeting me after first few months, and now they want to test me. It doesn't make sense. What if my strength is completely different to the next person? Like, just because he's good at math and I'm not, it doesn't mean that I can't be a writer. Maybe I'm a writer. I don't know. Like, but then when we see those grades, we're programmed to think, oh, I have to be good at everything, all the time, everywhere. And I think it's almost like you're saying, you have to commit to the journey, rather than saying, I'm going to try this one project. If it fails, that's it. It's the end. It's more about, if it fails, if it doesn't matter, because it's what I'm learning along the way, and the character I'm becoming, I guess. I don't know if you agree.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, if you sum it up, like, most people don't add the pain into the plan, and so what happens is like, shit, I'm experiencing pain right now. That wasn't part of the plan. They're unprepared to tolerate something, to have to embrace something. And I look at business in a very simple way. Like, when I first started failing, it was never part of the plan, but once you get used to it, you start to adjust the plan. And so if I plan in the future for a business or product or success or something I'm trying to achieve something in, I also plan inside of it, like, that I'm going to fail a couple of times, that I'm going to get burned, that this is going to be painful. And this is the crazy part, is when it's planned for and it happens, it doesn't have the same emotional effect over you as if it's unplanned. And so, like, I'll give you an example. I write my goals down every day. And this is one of the things I've been doing for the last 13 years. It's like a religious part of what I do. And one of my goals is to make 10,000 investments throughout my life. I don't classify an invest, like my context of what I say for certain things is very different than other people's. I've designed it myself. So to me, an investment is an investment of time. Reading a book is an investment. Making a financial commitment to something is an investment. And so, 10,000 investments it doesn't seem impossible, because it's not just 10,000 financial, exchanges of fiat currency or whatever it is. It's 10,000 investments that I consciously make into something that's going to improve or give me an ROI in life. And ROI comes in many forms, spiritual, metaphysical, physical, financial, health, nutrition, pretty much many different ways. So if I fail in an investment, and my ultimate goal, which is the long journey, is to make 10,000 investments, am I on track or am I off track? Especially if I know that 9,000 of those attempts are going to be failures, in the grand scheme of things, I'm on track. So I can't really get emotionally derailed from, getting closer in progress to what my goal is that I write down.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, because you're giving yourself a sense of clarity and direction for where it is that you're going. And then I guess that changes the decisions, or shapes the decisions you make on a day-to-day or month-by-month basis, so that you're always heading in that direction. But let me ask you this. From my interaction so far, from this conversation, you seem like a happy guy. Like, the most people are smiling, laughing all the time. And for someone, especially who's failed as many times as you have, what would you say was the one, if you were to put a finger on one thing that changed your 8 or 9 failures to then being in the place that you are now? Like, what was it that you were missing?
Mindset. In one simple word, it was mindset. Now give you an example as well. I've helped mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, about 100 different people who've added $1 million or more to their business, some that have added tens of millions to their businesses. And I've mentored some from scratch, literally from idea stage. And I also used to conduct these masterminds, these events. I used to have an events company. We used to do 30 events a year for different entrepreneurs. And when you're meeting all these different entrepreneurs, they're all at different varying levels. Like, one guy's doing 6 figures, one guy's struggling to do 6 figures, one guy's doing 7 figures, one guy's struggling to do 7 figures. And if I was to sum up what is the biggest difference between a 6-figure earner, a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure, even 10-figure earner, it's not what we think it is. Like, they all work equally the same. They have great work ethic. You can't make money unless you have good work ethic. They all sacrifice. You can't get ahead if you're not making sacrifices. They all have some sense of self-discipline. You can't grow if there's no sense of self-discipline. So all things being equal, if I remove creativeness and all these different things that they have, that generally all of them have in varying degrees, the biggest difference, the very biggest difference between why one person just does greater than the other person is their mindset. It's how they look at the world and the thoughts that they think. The guy who's, and we really associate our mindset with what we earn, as lame as that sounds, like the guy working at McDonald's is like, shit, I'm only worth like McDonald's money, like minimum wage. Like, I shouldn't think thoughts beyond what minimum wage can afford, because that's just, crazy, and the guy like Elon Musk, who's trying to send rockets into space and stuff like that, like, he's trying to solve multi-billion-dollar problems, and the problems you choose to solve with the thoughts that you choose to create are a definition of your true value and worth. And it's not anything less or anything different. You're not what you earn, you're what you think you can contribute to the world. So this is at least my way of looking at it. And I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs go from different phases in their life to higher phases. And the number one thing I always notice is that one guy just thinks different. They just think of $1 million thoughts as opposed to $1,000 thoughts. They just think solving $1 million problems as opposed to solving, $1,000 problems. And that attention to mindset, that varying quality of thought makes that person do greater things. That higher consciousness and awareness of the problems that they're trying to solve just makes them succeed in solving these problems, whereas other people fail. We do too much association with negative things, and this, like, you mentioned I'm happy. I'm not always happy. I'm human like anyone else, but I've been able to decrease the programming, that I've received since I was a kid in the school system and all this other stuff. And I think if you don't do something about that, then your thoughts are, I'll give you a quick example. 88% of the thoughts that we think generally on an average day are negative. And this is some statistics from the National Science Foundation and other places like that. 98% of the thoughts that we think are repeat thoughts. So if you add that up, that's a whole lot of negativity on repeat, like a broken record, and this is why we process negative shit faster, in the media and the news, and like we're immune, like a bomb went off and we're like, oh, bomb went off, this happens every day. Like, we're so immune and desensitized to like negative stuff that we process it faster. And then like someone goes and does something amazing, it's a positive thing, we're like, bullshit, I don't think that really happened, and stuff like that, because we don't have a belief system. We have a disbelief system. This is how we're trained. But I think if you work on your quality of thought, and there's physical things you can do for it, and there's internal things that you can do for it. But if you combine some of these practical things and you apply them in a consistent way, just practicing them every day, you get more control over your thoughts. So if I can decrease my negativity of thought from 80% to 40%, I'm a whole different person, and anyone would have the same results. If 98% of my thoughts are repeat and I reduce that to say 90%, and 10% of the time I'm taking in new information, I'm a totally different person, because I have to process a whole different type of vibrational frequency of energy from all the information I'm taking in. This is why billionaires like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and even Mark Zuckerberg and all these guys just read so much. They consume so much content. It's a part of their staple of their daily routine, is that they read and they consume information, because it keeps their mind totally different than what a mind that is not consuming new information is doing, or becomes, basically.
Yeah, you're right. And I think reading is a big proponent of all of these successful people, including yourself, because I know how much you read in your early days and even now. And I think, it just gives you a perspective of someone else around the world who's doing something different to the people that you might be associating yourself with, especially if you can't get in the same room as them, at least immediately, or you don't have contact with them. You can read their story or take in their advice from reading. And it really changed my view on books, because in school, I was never a big reader myself. I don't know if you were, but I
definitely was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was the opposite. I didn't really like to read, but as soon as I came out of school, I naturally found the books that I gravitated towards. And then I couldn't stop reading, because I realized the value in it and the way it was changing my view on the world. So what would you say, based on what you said earlier about, the difference in thoughts, what would you say is an example of a $1 million thought?
It's two parts. So one is quality and one is quantity, and unfortunately the quantity of thought that we have is negative, and we don't realize it, but it's just far too negative in volume, and so then when you have a quality thought that is a positive thought, or you're thinking about doing these amazing things, and this is going to get deep, but like we have a thought is like an electrical impulse firing in the brain, and so this electrical impulse fires, it connects through all my neurological pathways. It goes into this center called the amygdala, and inside every time a thought fires, I'm thinking of something. Like I'm talking to you right now, I'm thinking of something is firing, and there's these neurological pathways that are connected. They're almost like part of your DNA. They're connected. And so if I thought of a negative thing 90% of my day, I have stronger negative neurological pathways than I do positive ones. And if I think of something positive, it's very temporary. It doesn't stay that long. If I'm motivated off something, the motivation lasts for like, until the first sign of trouble comes, and then the motivation is gone too, and so it's like a tall field of grass, and I walk across it once. I may make a path once, but then the tall field of grass, like by the end of the day, will look normal again, and that's how our mind is. It's this paved road of negativity. So if I walk across it once, it won't make a difference. But if I sit there and I walk across it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, eventually I'll wear down the tall field of grass, and you'll see that I've been there, and you'll see that there's a change in the environment. And so $1 million thought, or thinking $1 million thoughts, is just focusing on the positive things that you want in your life, or where you want to go, or what you want to contribute. And then then growing it from there, essentially. Like, but in a practical way every day. If I don't do something every day to combat that, it's like a garden where if you don't pull out the weeds every day, just if you just leave it for a while, and you come back, even though it was the most beautiful garden, it's just going to look like shit again. And
yeah, you have to, yeah, I think you got, yeah, exactly. I think you got to attend to it every day and make it a daily routine almost to make sure you're nurturing it, just like you would, with exercise in the gym, or you go to work every day and you do your job. You should be doing that with your mind and almost treat it as a job in itself, like a ritual. So what's some of the stuff that you do on a day-to-day or week-by-week basis to make sure that mindset's elevated?
So the number one thing I do, there's like 6-7 things I do, but the number one thing I do is I write my goals down every day. And because I write them every day, that time that I spend thinking about them, writing them down, these electrical impulses are firing, and I'm rebuilding those neurological pathways. And so you can only focus on one thing at a time. It can't be fear and fight in the same thought. It's one thing. And that's the cool thing about the mind, is that if you can control it on focusing on one thing, you don't have to think about the other thing. It's just we're trained and conditioned to think about the negative things faster than the positive. So I write my goals down every day. I do it 5 times a day. I do it as soon as I get up. I do it 3 times throughout my day. I do it before I go to sleep. I'm like self-programming. And this is, I call it the anchor thing that I do. You've seen the cartoon The Simpsons, right?
Yep.
And so in the opening scene, it shows Bart Simpson writing on the chalkboard, "I won't do this again. I won't do this again. I won't do this again." And like teachers, schooling system, they use it as a form of penalizing, consequencing, to make someone do something like that. Because, but if you look at the science of the activity that they're doing, they're making you write something that you won't do again to make you feel like, oh, this is painful, I'm not going to do it again. What if I reverse that as an example, and I write down, I will, make 10,000 investments, or I will build 10,000 units of housing, or whatever it is. And I keep writing and I keep writing. Instead of like a detention penalizing thing, it becomes like a self-expressing, rewarding type of thing. And the more you do it, the more you start to brainwash yourself and reprogram yourself. So when an opportunity does arise that helps you get closer to that goal that you keep writing down every day, you seize it with a different type of energy than you would, if it wasn't that important to you and you weren't writing it down every single day. So that's like the number one thing. I think that it's a good takeaway for everybody even watching this, is that if you're not writing your goals down, you're just not serious enough about them. There was a Harvard study, and I forget the exact statistics, but it said something like 83% of the people didn't write their goals down. And these are people who go to Harvard, they're pretty educated people and looking to do some big things in the world. And they said the 17% that did write their goals down make 5 to 10 times more money than the ones that didn't. And like, it's absolutely crazy. Like, and this was a Harvard study that they did over 20 years. And so over 20 years, they like tracked, okay, these guys do it, these guys write their goals down. And then 20 years later, how much money are they making right now compared to the other guys who did it? And they were far outshining every single one of them, which is crazy. It's just a really powerful thing when you connect your thoughts into, your potential, your dreams and your goals, but you write it every day.
It makes so much sense, because if you can't see the target you're going for, what are you trying to hit? Like, you can't hit anything. You can't, when you get into a car, where you're going, the end destination. You may have to reroute a couple of times, but where you're going to end up. You can't end up anywhere else, because you've decided, I'm going to end up at my friend's house or my parents' house, wherever it is.
Your internal moral compass, your GPS, that you use to chase your dreams in life, is constantly every single day being programmed to the same destination. And so even if I'm off track, I'm lost, I don't know, my Wi-Fi went out or whatever it is, I know as soon as the connection is back, like I know where to go or which direction to go in, at least.
Exactly. Now let's rewind back now. So obviously we're talking about everything that you do now. So let's rewind all the way back to, I think you started when you were 7. You said you had like lemonade stands, and you were working with the other kids to make that come to life. How does a 7-year-old even think about something like that? Like at 7, the kids are just like painting or like fucking around, or like they're not thinking about, let me make a lemonade stand, bring other kids involved, let me get them active. Like what shaped you to do that?
Part of it was experiential. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And then part of it was circumstance and necessity. You know, I grew up poor. My family was poor, so money was something that was like a distant memory inside of our household. And I always questioned, why can other kids have certain things and why can't I? You know, and when I would ask my parents for certain things, they, you know, as great as they were in bringing us up, they used to try to explain that, like, look, this is, you know, something that you know, you have to have money for, you know, and stuff like that. And you know, you have such a big family. Your father works so hard to support you guys that we just don't have enough money, you know, for these things. And I didn't accept that. I said, this is, well, how do you make money? Like, you know, how do you create money? And you sell a product or service or whatever. And back then I said, well, how can I make money? I'm only 7 years old. I don't know anything about money. And I said, okay, well, like, and I saw a lemonade stand in another city when I was visiting some relatives. When I came back, I said, okay, so I'm just going to set up a lemonade stand. I vividly remember that time where I saw that kid give a cup of lemonade to someone and that someone gave them money. And I said, whoa, this is like the way to make money. You just, like, you know, give them lemonade on a hot day and like, and so I just set it up and I stood out there and I did it. And I am the type, when I come up with some crazy idea and I succeed even a little bit in it, I go all the way in, like really, really deep. And so I just stood out there every single day and I started to make money. And then I bought some stupid stuff when I was a kid, like a Game Boy and a skateboard and stuff like that. And the neighborhood kids who I used to look up to and be like, man, their parents are rich, you know, and they were like, man, your parents are rich. Like, where did you get the new Game Boy? Like, you know, where did you get like this skateboard? And I was like, I worked for it. And they're like, what do you mean worked for it? Like, how does that happen? And they're like, your parents let you work? And I'm like, yeah. And then we got around to talking to the kids and I said, look, like, I can help you get this stuff the same way I got it, you know, and let's just do the same thing I did. And so we franchised the lemonade stand pretty much before we knew what the hell franchising was. And we set it up on 10 streets in my neighborhood, and we all started to make money. And the deal was that, like, you would get whatever we wrote down. We made a list of all the things all the kids wanted. So there was like some planning in advance, some motivation, you know, we're all going to get this together. And then once they started to receive these things, the rest of the money that we would make would be mine, you know. And over the course of that summer, I made $900 and I felt like Bill Gates. I was like, man, this is insane. Like, I didn't even know what to do with it all, to be honest. Like, but I knew business was like my calling, the thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Was it because you, like, after that experience of making that and then what it felt like, is that what made you feel like, yeah, this is what I want to do more of?
I realized that money was freedom. And I'm really good at observation. You know, it's probably any child is, you know, and when I saw how hard my dad worked and how little money he made and how, you know, how much it stretched out to take care of the family and stuff like that, I knew there's got to be a way to make, you know, to work just as hard. Even, I'm not afraid of working hard, but to make more money for my efforts, you know. And I knew a job wasn't that way. You know, a job was a very glass ceiling, limited type of place. And only entrepreneurs had the freedom to go out there and make more money. And all the entrepreneurs that I knew, even though they go through hell, you know, they go through all these crazy emotional roller coasters and struggles in life. But when it comes to the money side of things, they're a lot more free than you know, other people who can't do these things. And so I knew, I was like, entrepreneurship is like the way to live my life. And I just fell in love with it.
What were your parents doing?
My dad, as funny as it sounds, was a failed entrepreneur. He had a convenience store. He used to work for the embassy as a driver, and then he used to drive a taxi at night. So he was doing like 3 jobs plus a side business. His business was never really successful either. And so, you know, the number one thing my dad told me is, don't go into business. Don't be an entrepreneur. This shit is too hard. You know, I'm going through it in a really hard way. And so it's not for everybody. You know, I want my kids to have that degree and then just, you know, to collect a steady paycheck and not have to worry about where it's coming from. But I was like, man, you know, if you failed, then I definitely got to succeed, because, you know, we got to get revenge for the family here. You know?
Yeah, I guess that part of it plays into it as well. Like you want to fill that gap almost, and prove to yourself that you can do it, and then I guess change the direction of where your family is going. That's the number one driver when speaking to people who are trying to go for big things. It's like I want to change the way that this world is before I got here. Like, and then after I've left, like my family name or the way that the world operates is slightly different just because I came here. So do you
Yeah,
feel like that was a driving force? Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I wasn't. I was really financially motivated most of my life until I made money, and finances weren't the driving force anymore. Like what you're talking about now, like the legacy related stuff, like that's probably the person I am now in the position that I'm in life now. I'm really legacy driven. I like to do things where I'm making a difference. I'm contributing back to the world. I'm fighting inequality and social injustice and poverty and all these different things. And that gives me more fulfillment than making another $1 million or something like that. But it took me a long time to get to this place in life and to come to this realization and consciousness. But yeah, it's you're bang on. I didn't have it when I was young, but young was just trying to solve the circumstances, and then once you solve the circumstances, you realize that the world has a lot of circumstances as well.
Exactly. As we were saying, like you have to be committed to the journey because you couldn't have got here without feeling like, I want to achieve the dream that you saw for yourself back then. And it's like, regardless of where I go or what happens, I want to stick to it. And the fact that you did now gives you the privilege and the chance to help others or to improve the world in a slightly different frame than you could have done had you not been in this position. So I do want to get into all of the stuff that you're doing now because it's super interesting for people listening, the sorts of stuff that
Yeah.
you're addressing and getting yourself involved with. But after the lemonade stand, take us quickly through what schooling was like and then the pizza store and what happened around
Yeah,
that
yeah,
time.
sure. So I absolutely hated school. I felt it was like, punishment, like sending me to school is like sending me to hell or whatever. But uh, I was a regular student. I wasn't too smart or anything like that in school. Worst attendance records always. The hallway loiterer, who used to hang outside of class as much as possible. Um, but when it came to test time, and I knew I had to do work, I would just do the work. I would get out there, I would do the work, and I'd get it done. And my marks weren't necessarily the greatest either. So all the way up until 13, when I was 13, my family bought a pizza store, and that was like the family business at the time. My dad wasn't working anywhere else, so that was like our primary source of income. So 4 brothers and myself plus my sister, and I used to work. I used to go to school at 8:30 in the morning, get off, go to the pizza store at 3:30, work till like 2 a.m. in the morning, come home and sleep and do it again. So like I didn't really have much of extra sports curricular activities, anything that all the other kids really had. I was just working to help the family. But it taught me the value of hard work and work ethic, which I've carried forward into my career. And I think it's one of the most important things, even though it's not what you want a kid to be doing, but it definitely was, you know, uh, I don't regret it. I look back on it because during that time, I also read, I had quiet time, and working till 2 a.m. Not a lot of people work till 2 a.m. So like things die down after dinner when it comes to a pizza store. And so I read voraciously. I would read everything that I can get my hands on in regards to business and stuff. So I wasn't like a student outside of in school, but I was like a student of life and dreams and like stuff like that outside of school.
So what were the sorts of stuff you were reading at the time?
I read these 2 books, which I think pretty much every entrepreneur has read, that at that time had a really profound impact on my life. And one was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the second one was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I aligned a lot with what Robert Kiyosaki was saying. I was like, yeah, this is what I want, and like, I'm going to make investments. And like, I'm not in this quadrant of job and like, in whatever employee and like, and, Rich and Think and Grow Rich was a really, really powerful book. I've read it throughout my life now so far, probably about 35 times. And I reread it because it worked on my mindset more than anything while I was this young little teenager dreaming about these big things and hearing stories about like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller and Thomas Edison and all these great American business industrial titans and their stories, and then reading that there's this crazy little guy named Napoleon Hill who says he found the formula for it, you know, and all the things that they have in common. And if it's funny because when you look at it, I've kind of spent a lot of my life applying what I've learned. Like, you know, there's a whole chapter dedicated to masterminds, you know, and how masterminds and connecting with other people, and it helps you skyrocket some of your growth. There's mentors and these other things. And I've always tried really hard, unconsciously probably, but consciously as well, to go and do these things. And so when I was in a position to help give back and help other entrepreneurs, I created an events company. I started doing masterminds. I had these 2 different mastermind formats, and we would get together with all these other entrepreneurs, and lives would literally change, you know. And so that definitely was probably the single biggest book that had the biggest impact. I read a lot of other stuff on mindset as well, like The Magic of Thinking Big. I think it was Tony Schwartz or whoever it was that wrote that. And The Brain That Rewires Itself, like all these different books that regarded mindset, because this was the one thing that I felt I had in my power to control and change. And the faster I worked on it when I was young, then I would be different when I was older, you know, and everybody else was like the same, you know.
It definitely shapes you because you start to act in a different way, and then you start to see things and situations and people from a different perspective as well. Like you almost feel like I can't fit in anymore the way I used to, because it's like I can't do what you're doing. I can't speak about the same things. I can't act the same way as you, and it almost makes you feel slightly distant from maybe your old friends and family. So I was going to ask you about that during that time, or just around that time. Did you feel like you were being distanced a little bit from your like brothers or your friends?
I felt it was really hard to fit in, you know, and I'm like an immigrant coming to, like, you know, the first world country like Canada, where I grew up, and you know, there's a society and culture there and stuff like that, you know. And as much as I'd love to just change my skin and my religion, my culture, my name and all that, you can't. You're born with these things, you know. So you try to fit in, you try to fit into society and try to do the cool things and stuff like that. And as much as I didn't have too much of a problem externally fitting in, I was a popular kid that used to get into trouble all the time. But internally, like, I just didn't feel like I fit in, you know. I didn't feel like I belonged there. And that's a really powerful testament to some entrepreneurs and people out there, is that you maybe some of you are maybe meant to create your own circle. You're not meant to fit in any other kind of circle. You know, we're different types of personalities and people. And as much as I tried to fit in, I would fit in for a while, and then I would fall out of it because I would probably sabotage it or do something that I'm like, you know, this is not where I belong. So I just keep searching and searching. Yeah. I just felt it was really not my place. Like, I'll give you a small example, because this goes to show how unconventional, you know, the mindset was starting to become, and my youth was starting to become. I would intentionally color outside the box, you know. And so, like, when you're coloring in the lines, and, you know, you're doing it all perfectly, the kid who colors inside the line and shows the perfect picture, and the teacher goes, "Oh, wow, Tommy, that's amazing, you know, good job." And then, like, me, the kid who colors intentionally outside the box, and the kid was like, and the teacher's like, "No, this is not how you do it. Like, you need more attention. I need to give you more attention because you're just not following the rules," you know. And and then, one, I would get more attention, so I'd feel special, and I would act out more, and then 2, I would frame the context of what they're saying. Like, they would say that's wrong, and in my head I would be like, "No, that's not wrong. Like, how do you design the rules? Like, you know, it like, how do you get to tell me what's wrong or right just because I did it my way?" You know. And you realize more that I can't fit in. Eventually, like, I think it was grade 11 or 12, I dropped out of high school, and I was like, school's just not for me. You know, all the things that tell you are wrong are actually, you know, maybe right to me, you know. And I can learn a lot more if I didn't have a business teacher who never started and failed in a company and was teaching the whole class business, you know.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that, because I did something similar. This was like going back a few years now, and like I was inside a store, and I needed an umbrella to to go home, and it was heavily raining in London. It's always raining here, so I needed an umbrella. And there was this girl this woman that had an umbrella, and she was like, "Yeah, you can use it quickly if you're just going down the road, but just be aware, it's like bright pink." And I was like, "I don't care. Like, I want to use it." And it's as weird as it sounds. A part of me was like, "I like that. It's like it because it's gonna make me stand out because I don't like fitting in anyway, and I want people to say something about it because then I can almost have a chance to challenge them and say, who associated pink with women? Like, when did that happen? It doesn't. It's like I don't like the fact that all of these rules are created because there's like an instruction manual that's almost written by someone else, and then they for themselves, and then they apply it to everyone. And because they may be in a position of power or I don't know what it is on a pedestal, they feel like that's how everyone should do it. And when you start seeing everyone as an individual, then you start realizing actually that's their way. Like, this is my way, that's their way. It doesn't mean it's everyone's way. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So society has mentally imprisoned us with their design, and if you wanted something else for your life, you've got to design it yourself. And the designs are always going to conflict, and just because they're meant for different outcomes.
Exactly. Yeah. So what happens after you dropped out of school? So is that when did you take over the pizza store? Like, what happened around that time then?
No, I never took it over. I actually got my driver's license. When I dropped out of school, I was on my fourth failed company. So I would start a company, I'd create some software company, and I'd say, like, I'm going to just hit it big. I'm going to do this. And I was failing and going to school at the same time and stuff. And I said, okay, look, I just got to pick one. Either I go to school and learn all these soft skills that I have absolutely no interest in, or I just quit and I go full force into learning how to be a successful entrepreneur. And I try my luck in the real world, which I know I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing anyway. So I might as well get an early head start on it. And and I just dropped out. In the pizza store when I was 16, I got my driver's license and I was doing pizza deliveries. I would start to get tips, and that started to change things because before it was like slave labor. I used to make no money working for the family business, lucky if I get $5 a week or something. And then when I started doing pizza delivery, it was like $5 a day. I was like, whoa, I'm starting to make some money here. And so I saved it all up and I started my first company, failed. And for the sake of the interview, I'll speed it up. But like, with 7 companies back to back, all failures. 8th company, total bankruptcy, borrowed money off every single person that I knew, and like friends, family, like pretty much everybody, went bankrupt in 6 months. Owed everybody on the planet money. Went through 2.5 months of like total depression. I don't want to say suicidal, but I do want to say entrepreneurial suicidal, meaning like I'm writing a resume. I'm like, I need to find a job. Like, I'm never going to make it. I need like a source of income to pay these debts, like stuff like that. And then started my 9th company, no money, convinced 2 friends to lend me some money, work with me in the business. That took off finally, coming on the back of 8 failures. And I started to make 30-40 grand a month. I paid off my debts. I got out of debt. I was starting to make some money a little bit. And so I had some what the hell I was going to do. And then packed up everything, moved to UK, 10th company, started to make money there. Then after that, just pissed it all away. I realized that, look, man, I'm poor up here. And it doesn't matter like what happens externally. If I don't change like my mindset or my relationship, my understanding, my consciousness, my financial IQ, I'm always going to be poor because like I'm designed to just spend, and I'm designed to just look at money as a tool to spend and to acquire materials, objects, and items, as opposed to investments or like anything like that is going to bring me more money or make me more money, essentially. And so I went on a journey, and I started studying everything I could about investing. Same thing I did when in my teens when I was studying business and entrepreneurship. I started to study investing, and I started to study how, what the difference is between an asset and liability, and what things to stay away from, what things to just try to get as close to as possible. And I created a system for myself where I try to invest most of my money into things that make me more money. And I try to stay away from liabilities as much as possible. It's a funny quote. I forget exactly what it was, but landlords go to sleep comfortably at night because they know in the morning when they wake up, there's a check coming. And entrepreneurs go to sleep, or people who buy liabilities go to sleep like worrying all night, because they know in the morning they have to get up and find a way to make money again, and so this is like the difference between an investor mindset and a person who's like, maybe the guy who's waking up in the morning, he's like, I got to pay rent, and the landlord is waking up in the morning going, I got to collect rent. Like, man, like it is a total different mindset. And I think that's what really attracted me to try to want to be this investor mindset and make these investments and stuff like that.
Yeah, so no, that makes complete sense. And I think you've got to take it back to like the basics of understanding assets, liabilities, and making sure you have that knowledge in place so that when you do have some money and you're ready to take action on whatever it is you're trying to do, you're putting it in the right place and not buying like, cars and clothes and stuff when you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, so that just brings me like to where we are today, I guess, with everything you're doing. What are some of the things that you're investing your money in now, and then I guess the initiatives that you're involved with regarding some of the, solving some of today's problems?
I've always been an advocate of not risking things too much. And so like your portfolio should be diversified, like maybe 10% high risk, high reward, and then the bulk of it, like 80-90% of your portfolio should be diversified between low risk, low reward, medium risk, medium reward. I tend to stick in the medium risk, medium reward area, and that's my sweet spot. I think that I'm the most comfortable in, because low risk, low reward is just not for me. And high risk, I've been burned too many times on trying to make so much money overnight, investments that never materialized, and so you get a little bit more wise to, making stupid attempts at trying to like achieve things overnight. But real estate's a great one. Real estate has really helped me build something where I know I'll never go hungry. My family will never go hungry. Like, it's something where I know my wife can't run my businesses, but like she can go to the mailbox, take a check out and cash it and pay the bills, and so it's like you're building some sort of foundation around things that are not too difficult to manage, even if they're passed on to next generation or someone else. Construction is a really big one for me right now. We're really revolutionizing the construction space here in Dubai. I don't know if you've ever been to Dubai, but it's like the whole place is under construction. It's always under construction. They're always building the world's greatest, biggest, craziest things here and stuff like that. So this is a huge one for us. I'm a partner in a company called Service My Car. We just won the Arabian Business SME Small Medium Enterprise of the Year award a few nights back. I got nominated for top 40 under 40 in the Middle East in terms of like entrepreneurs and stuff. Like, so like real estate's a big one, construction's a big one, transportation just is in the specific to the region that I'm in. These are the type of businesses that I think are not going to like die down anytime soon, because like everyone's so lazy in the Middle East, they need a car, like they have to drive the car. I'll give you an example. Dubai has 2 million people and there's 2.9 million cars registered. Wow. To people. Yeah. So it's like everybody has 2 cars, like everybody has 2 phones. Like technology is such a big pervasive thing in our lives here. And the whole city in Middle East is under construction, because before it was just sand and they had no money, and like now they have resources and things like that. So they're just building and developing it. So I think these businesses, at least for the place and region that I'm in, these are the type of sustainable business that I'll be in for a very long time. Like I'll give you an example from Service My Car. Like we're developing a device, and what this device does is it goes into your vehicle, plugs into your ECU, and it plugs into your odometer as well, and it tracks your mileage. So like as an example, if I need an oil change in 10,000 miles, it tells me at 9,099 miles, hey, you need an oil change. What it does is it sends a message to our system, our technology platform, and then from there, we automatically book you an appointment at the nearest garage to where your car is. And we send someone to go pick it up, and we work 24 hours a day. So you can go to work, drop and leave your car in the parking garage. We'll come pick it up, get it serviced, bring it. It tells you everything about parts, battery, brakes, like you name it. And so all the ladies out there driving cars, like, it's a really annoying thing to take time out of your day, go to the repair shop, get your car repaired, spend time in traffic, eat some food while you're waiting. Like it kills your whole day, like, doing these type of things. And so we made it super convenient, super simple, and super easy, like to the point where now we're in discussions with Dubai Taxi Corporation. They have like 12,000 cars. Dubai Police has like 8,000 cars. And they're like, we want your device in all of our cars. We want this efficiency going. And it's just these scalable businesses that I think have the potential there's no ceiling here. You know, they can be scaled, and if they work well here, they could work well in other places and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. It seems like you've got yourself into a place where, as you said, I don't think those industries are going to die down anytime soon. Specifically
Yeah.
because like Dubai is constantly trying to recreate and invent the latest, biggest building or construction site or devices or industries. So
Mhm.
that's one of the things I was going to ask you actually. Is like what made you move to Dubai? Because if I remember correctly, I think your parents moved from Pakistan to US. So like this whole story about the
Yeah.
pizza store, all of that stuff was in the US. So when did you move to Dubai?
It was actually in Canada. I was born in
Oh,
Pakistan,
Canada.
left.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, moved to the US, then Canada, and then mainly primarily educated, raised in Canada. I moved to Dubai 2010, and I came out here because there was no tax. No tax. I had a friend who was like, "Dude, why don't you just come out here? You're not an American citizen. You know, you don't have to pay tax. You can be a non-resident of your country, and you still retain your passport, and you can come out here and you can work, and there's no corporate income tax, no personal income tax. Like, so you'll save a lot of money. And I know you're an entrepreneur. You'll do other cool things with it, and literally that's what happened. I came out here. The only reason was just like, I didn't even want to live here when I came out, because Dubai was going through a really financial tough time when I came out here, and everybody was running away from Dubai, and I was running to it. And uh, I saw opportunity where others saw fear, you know, and it's been the best decision I think I've ever made. And yeah, so the real reason was just the tax. And then after, when I came here and I started saving money, I just saw how much opportunity there was here, how undeveloped the place was in certain niches and industries, and how much potential there was for entrepreneurs to come fill these gaps, you know, and to come to create products and services that would speed the region up, you know, in terms of competitiveness with the rest of the world.
Yeah. So I think from all of that as well, I guess that's what whilst you were there, you hosted some of your Billion Dollar Masterminds. Is that right, in Dubai?
Yep.
Yeah. So through all of that, what would you say are a couple of things that you've noticed with people who have joined your mastermind or people you've spoken to in private, in terms of mistakes that they've made? So like, if the listeners and the viewers are listening in to this particular part of the episode, what would you say are the things that they should avoid doing or do more of, based on your experience with speaking to people?
Yeah, no, really easy. So like, when you're struggling, you're first starting out, you're thinking, I need to make six figures, you know, and like that's like the magic number inside like all these young entrepreneurs' minds. And uh, some are successful, some are not. It's not extremely, at least in my opinion, my philosophy, it's not extremely difficult to make six figures if you just stick to something and you see it through and you work really hard, and that's it. You just never give up. When you start to get into like high six figures and you start to get into seven figures and stuff like that, you again, I've seen mom and pop style entrepreneurs make anywhere from $1 to $5 million on an annual basis. But when you look at it, it's like they're working really hard. There's a lot of burnout. There's like, if they stop, so does the money, you know, and they can't really, like, it's just, you know, really high paying job. You know, it's not anything other than a job, but it just pays so damn well. And then if you look at other entrepreneurs, you have to pivot from this like solo entrepreneur outfit, you know, to this entrepreneur who realizes that teams are what make difference when it comes to scaling any kind of higher success. And so you need to learn to let some things go and to start delegating and outsourcing things out to other people. You need to learn to trust other people, even if they fail and they let you down. You don't, you know, get traumatized by that and then go back to doing everything yourself. You try again and you try again. Eventually you find the right person at the right time and right place that just meshes with you perfectly, and relieves like a super amount of burden that's on your shoulders from the day-to-day operations of the business. Like, so building teams is what takes you to the next level. Really working on your mindset is what definitely takes you to the next level. And then getting mentors. All these entrepreneurs came to me to these masterminds. They paid tens of thousands of dollars and stuff because they were looking for someone who can help them, you know, realize what their potential was, or maybe see things in them that they don't always see, you know, and stuff like that. And I'm looking for someone to help guide them in their businesses, you know, with systems and processes and stuff like that. I think anyone can get lucky. You know, I've seen so many people just get incredibly lucky, and even I question, like, how the fuck did they do that? You know, and like, because I know, like, you know, I'm working my ass off in some certain things, and I'm not nearly as lucky as they are. Just anyone can get lucky, but luck is an unsustainable thing. It's a thing where it's with you today and it's with someone else tomorrow. You know, and so the best way to really sustain your growth or your success is to just surround yourself with people who are doing better than you. You know, people who are stronger, smarter, wiser, richer, wealthier than you, and have been through more failures and challenges in life than you, because you will soak up everything around you that those people teach you, how they operate, what they think like. And my biggest thing is I want to learn how a person who's operating on a bigger level thinks, you know, because that their operation is a product of their thought. And so the more I get inside that head and I absorb some of their thought, the more my operation gets more efficient, you know, and the more my operation starts. And efficiency, you know, is a value creation and efficiency. Like, money is a byproduct of these things. Money isn't like, you know, it's created out of nowhere for nothing. Like, it's because you're making something work better, or you're adding more value to something that's already working in a certain way. And then money just follows people who are solving those type of problems and doing those type of things. So if you're like entrepreneurs and listeners and people out there, if you're doing well or you're struggling, you know, you have to work on your mind. You have to surround yourself with a team of other people to help you out. If you're a solo entrepreneur, like, as much as you may not like it or be comfortable with it, find a damn co-founder. You know, the world's greatest companies all had big co-founders. The multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500s all had co-founders. No one did it alone, whether you think they did or not. Like, you know, everyone had someone to help them. And you don't have to fix your weaknesses, as much as this may be going against the regular grain of thought, but you just have to, like, really master your strengths, because your strengths are what is going to provide for you every single time. And your weaknesses, you know, they don't matter in the grand scheme of things. There's other people who look at your weaknesses as their strengths, and they can contribute that to the table, you know. And so when you have other people giving you their strengths and you're really mastering your strength, you create a perfect harmony of a working relationship that just generates progress and results for everybody collectively.
Yeah, it's like focusing on your strengths and then finding other people to plug the gaps, like, and building a strong team around you to help elevate the business or the idea as a whole, rather than you trying to do everything and trying to improve on everything all the time, which I guess, you know, results to burnout and things of that nature. So what would you say, before I get into the final few questions, I just want to ask, what would you say are the things that you feel like, with where you are now, you need to work on, like yourself, that you're trying to physically or mentally trying to prepare yourself to get to that next level?
I am trying to find balance, because my life has just been so all over the place all the time. Like, in the last 5 years, I've had 3 kids, and all my kids were born in the US. They're American citizens, you know, and stuff like that. And so I'm like, my wife is here, my wife's gone for 9 months, you know, and I'm visiting and all this stuff. So plus I was traveling so much that I was really, it's been really hard to try to find the balance. And then when my family is here together in one place, I'm so conditioned to just working and going to the office late that they're like, hey, where's daddy and what's going on here? And like, and I'm like, I'm not used to, you know, having to have these multiple responsibilities at the same time. So I'm trying to find that work-life balance. I'm getting better at it, at least, you know. I know I'm gaining progress on it. I'm educating myself on it. And but that's one of the things I think any entrepreneur who has really big dreams, you know, and has worked for most of their life to try to accomplish something big or to chase a dream, is going to find themselves in, is that balance. Like, I was just reading something about Elon Musk today, about the fact that he's a workaholic, you know, and he has 5 kids and he works 20 hours a week, 20 hours a day or something like that. Like, he takes an Ambien just to sleep. Like, he's, you know, he's like, you know, just absolutely crazy. Like, he's, and look, like, the guy doesn't need to work, you know. Like, he got fined 20 million from the Securities and Exchange Commission for a tweet that he did about Tesla, you know, and stuff like that. And then someone asked him, what do you think about it? And he goes, well, it was worth it, you know. Like, it's $20 million, right? Like, so he has the FU money, you know, like the ability to say 20 million, like, big deal, you slap on the wrist, you know, like that type of stuff. yet he's still working so damn hard and so long, and like he's still probably trying to struggle and find that work-life balance and the family balance. Like everything has a right over us, you know, like my family has a right over me, my kids have a right over me, my work and my employees have a right over me, my health has a right over me, you know, and we don't exercise and equally, you know, contribute to all our rights. You know, it's always like one-sided in a way. Like my parents have a right over me, my wife, like, and most of us just focus on some of the rights and don't fulfill all of them, you know, and this causes problems later on. So I'm trying to balance my life so I can give everything its due right and its due time, and make sure everything in my life grows together as opposed to just one area. Also learning, like, from a philanthropic sense, you know, what else I can do in the world to try to fix certain things, and study certain people that I think have done incredible jobs in their fields. Like a lot of what I've come across is just downright passion, you know, and the people who really make a difference in certain corners of the world when it comes to health, education, poverty, things like that. They just gave a shit so much more than the other person, that they refused to quit, and they somehow made some kind of impact somewhere, you know. And so I'm a big believer in these type of things. And then it's creating companies where I can now get people to collaborate as much as possible. You know, prior to, we used to do things because we wanted to compete, you know, and we wanted to be the best at what we do, and stuff like that. And I think that's like an old way of thinking now. You know, I think the greatest entrepreneurs of the future are like those guys who create these hybrid business models: people, planet, profit, you know, collaboration, like getting other people involved to contribute as much to the dream or the goal as you are. And they're so passionate, even if they're contributing one small piece of the puzzle, you know, and it resonates really well. Like I can spend 5 hours putting a puzzle together, or I can get like 10 people to sit down with me and say, let's attack this, you know, and I'm sure it'll be in like 2 hours, you know, like an hour probably.
Exactly. And I think the point I want people to take away is, like, regardless of where you are in your life, like there's always something that you're trying to solve. We see so much in the media today, like, oh, he's a millionaire, you know, he's celebrity status, or he's verified, whatever it is that people look up to these days. When you dig behind that, there's always something they're struggling with, or they're trying to work on, and it's not necessarily shown to the forefront. Just as you said, you're trying to, you know, balance your wife and your kids and family life, and then some of the other stuff you mentioned. But when people look at you initially, they might think, oh, you know, it's fine for him. He's got 30 businesses, and, you know, he's traveling the world. He lives in Dubai. But it's more than that, because you're always doing that balancing act. At the start, it might be finance and trying to figure out your business. But then later on, it becomes family, or it becomes, you know, the next step for your career, or it becomes health complications. There's always something. So I guess, like, life is it's a constant hustle, isn't it? I guess, just to create what you want.
Yeah, yeah, it never ends. It never gets easier. You just get wiser, smarter, more intelligent, more wisdom filled. Like I met this one guy recently, and he was like, he had so much wisdom, and like the things that he would say in the so few words that he would use would just be profound. I'd be like, man, this guy's so smart. Like, and I asked him, I was like, this is probably a stupid question coming from someone like me, but I was like, where did you go to school? Like, you know, and he goes, I did it. And I was like, go figure, right? Like, cool. And I asked him, like, how did you get so wise? And he said, look, I faced a lot of challenges in life. And even though there's probably people out there from academic perspectives that are a lot more intelligent than me on paper, you know, and they sound like they're so much smarter, they haven't faced many challenges in life. Their challenge was like education, you know, school, and like doing these tests and stuff. And so in the real world, they get punched in the face by mortgage debt, like, you know, like all these things that they haven't had any experience in. And he goes, and I started all these things early. And so the challenges gave me education that I use now in life, which gave me wisdom. And so I can impart this stuff to people who haven't been through this yet, or are just going through it. And they're going to think, they're going to find me to be extremely wise. And it's not, it's just experience that came from facing challenges. And most people, you know, they don't roll up their sleeve and run towards a challenge. They're like, oh man, I'm going through this really challenging thing right now, and it's really difficult. And like, they beat themselves up over it, and they talk negative about it. And like, they don't want to face it at all. You know, like, just, they don't want it to happen in their life. This guy makes more money than a lot of other people that I've met. And he employs all these, like dropouts and like people who have gone through challenges. He doesn't even look at academic qualifications when it comes to like working with them. He looks at like, you know, straight up, how many challenges have you solved in your life? You know, and when someone starts telling him like, these are the challenge that I went through, or I did this, or I did, he's like, bam, that's awesome. You're hired. This is what I'm looking for. You know, he just wants a bunch of real problem solvers, you know, and I think that's just a great way to look at life.
It is, yeah, definitely. And I guess the economy would be vastly different if people hired on that basis, you know? So it
Yeah,
get
we have too many pencil pushers. You know,
yeah,
like,
that's a good way to put it, definitely. Just out of interest, what does this guy do? Like what's the business he's running, or what's he involved
he's he's in like 11 different things. He's into everything: construction, real estate, transportation, tourism, like pretty much everything. I think their biggest business is a driving school. And so here in the UAE, it's like a monopoly on driving schools. You have to take like 20 lessons, 30 lessons before you get your license. And it's like super expensive. You pay 5 to 10,000 dirhams, which is almost like $3,000. And you have to do it. It's like a government mandate. You have to take this. And so it's like a cash cow. He's passing, I think, 3,000 people a week through his driving school.
in?
He's
Wow.
making like, yeah, 15
Yeah, yeah,
million dirhams a week, like ridiculous money. And now he just did a deal with the Saudi Arabian government. And Saudi Arabia just legalized a law where women are allowed to drive. And
yeah,
so all of them have to get fucking driving school now. You know, it's like, you know,
yeah.
another
He's
million
minting
people
it.
coming on the road.
Yeah,
Just, yeah, he's just, I don't know, incredibly lucky, but
yeah.
went through a
No.
lot of shit.
Yeah, no, definitely. So just to get into the final few questions, then, I mean, based on everything you've said, like you've gone through a massive journey of ups and downs and challenges and good times. What is there anything different you'd tell the 18-year-old Com?
Oh man, too much advice to impart to 18-year-old Com, but that's a really good question. So two things. One is, you know, manage your money better. You know, manage your money better. You know, the earlier you start, the biggest head start you have on people out there. I know some 60-year-olds that have no assets. You know, like you worked your whole life and you have absolutely no assets. You're passing your kids on liabilities, you know, and that's like a really sad thing that, you know, you, by the time you're 60, I mean, you have no one to blame. You had the time to educate yourself. You had the time to do things like there could be some incredible circumstances that happen in your life and environment and things that really set you back over and over and over again. But like, you know, there's really no excuse. I think it was Jack Ma that said, if you're poor in your 20s, no problem. You're poor in your 30s, no problem. Like if you're poor in your 40s and 50s, you're the problem. You know, like, and he's bang on. Like, so manage your money better. Because this is something you won't learn in many places. Maybe 1%, 5% of the world's people manage 95% of the world's wealth, and like, you know, it's just not taught everywhere. There's no schools. Teachers don't know shit about it. Like everyone just like there's ignorance to managing money and to understanding money, and there's a eagerness like to understanding like debt. And, you know, you don't have to teach a kid how to spend money. We're all naturally inborn with this talent, you know, but it, we don't tend to learn how to spend it in the right way on the right things, you know. And so I think that's a really big thing that everybody should try to do. And if I could have done it earlier, I would have saved myself a lot of headache and a lot of different things. And then really mindset, like that helped me a lot, but I didn't realize how important it was back then. So I'll give you a quick example. When your mindset is not in the right place and you don't learn how to design a system to use to operate in the world with, individually, uniquely designed for you and your goals and what you want to do in life and your dreams, you end up defaulting to using other systems. And these other systems give outcomes and results that help other people, not necessarily you and who you uniquely are. And so if I had programmed my mind earlier and I had created this system a long time ago, I would have been probably a completely different person in the stage that I'm in now. So it's really, really important to design a mindset and a belief system that serves you, you know, and serves what you're trying to do in the world, because everybody's going to give you advice to do all these different things based on the advice that they were given. And when you get to the root of the advice, where it came from, generally it's like the education system, or someone broke, or someone starving, or someone just failing, or like, it's never, you know, from like someone who like just came out of the worst thing ever and said, okay, now this is solid advice, don't do this again, kid, because this almost killed me. Like it's usually from like, don't do this because we heard that you shouldn't do it because it'll result in something bad. So if I can go back to 18-year-old Tom, I'd say, look, kid, you really, really got to work on your mindset really hard as much as you can while you have the power and time to do it. And the benefit of that is we don't get any emotional training in school. We get educational training, like academic training, things like that. We get absolutely no emotional training. So anything emotionally that I deal with that I have not experienced before, I just, you don't know how to deal with it, right? Like someone who you get in a fight with someone and you love them, and then how do you respond, right? There's like no training, conditioning, none of this stuff on any emotional training at all. But when you train your mindset, you control your mindset and your thought process and your belief system, you tend to understand more about the right context of what happens to you. Like as an I know this sounds funny, but it's probably a stupid example, but if you met someone who was mentally challenged, okay, he's mentally challenged. I don't want to be disrespectful and say the wrong word or say retarded or anything like that. I'm not a disrespectful person, but let's say you met someone who was mentally challenged, or mentally unstable or something like that, and they came and they punched you or pushed you, you wouldn't turn around and like beat the living crap out of him because like he's in a certain condition. Like it's just he's not doing it intentionally. Like it's unfair for you to then go, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this guy, because he did this to me, right? Like, and as sad as it sounds, the world is mentally challenged. The world is emotionally challenged, and the things that people do to you are out of nature and out of preconditioning and programming and things like that. They're not really all out of intention. They're out of like subconscious second nature, just the way they're programmed and designed. And so you become a lot more forgiveful, and forgetful about a lot of the things that other people would get so emotionally charged up about that they would like destroy their own life and destroy their own mind and stuff like that, when it's so unnecessary. Like you just have to learn to live and forgive and forget, and because you understand the context or the mindset that the person is doing these things out of, and so like a parent tells you like, don't do this, because they're trying to protect you because something happened to them in the past, and like, they don't want that same thing to happen to you. It doesn't mean like, don't go take a risk or don't pursue your dream or whatever. It just means like they're giving you some valid advice, be cautious about it, be heed the advice that, because it may come in handy at the right time, be tread softly, or things like that. So if I knew back then what I know now, half the emotional roller coasters that I went through, from like lost finances, bankrupt companies, bad investments, like broken relationships, all these things that I went through that I didn't have any training on how to understand, and I had to process over time. Time heals all wounds, obviously, but if I had more emotional training and I can pass on what I have now back to that 18-year-old kid, I would have been one like badass wrecking ball of like contribution in the world, and it would have changed a lot of things in a much bigger, different way. I'm still a big believer that there's no time like tomorrow, and you still always have that opportunity. It's not like it's just gone forever, but it's just something I find so many people like don't give any attention to, training to, or anything at all. Like entrepreneurs are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than the average person, because their expectations are up here and they're right here, and there's this big gap always, and they get depressed harder than anyone I know, like they just, any type of class of people that I know, and it's, life is very different for them than it is for other people. And this is like the unsexy stuff that no one talks about in entrepreneurship, but it's so real. So if you have the ability to get some emotional intelligence, get some emotional training, control your emotions, half the things that happen to you in life will have no effect or actually the opposite effect of what the intended effect was. So like if I know all your emotions, I know how to push your buttons. It's like a keyboard, right? I can just anytime I want get you mad, get you angry, get you sad, and this happens in our relationships a lot, especially with the people that we love or we spend the most time with. And so if they can't push your buttons anymore, or if they press a key and it's the wrong key, there's no effect, right? There's no reaction that they can get out of you. And that's half the battle. It's life is all about how you react to things and not so much about what happens to you. It's all about how you react.
Yeah, you've covered some super interesting stuff there, and it just got me thinking about a couple of things as you're talking. And the one of the first things was, I think I read this quote by George Orwell who said, like, at 50 every man has the face he deserves. And it was like the same thing you were saying about the 60-year-old. It's like by that time you've had enough time to get your shit together, or to reflect on your 50 years of living, to then for it to equal whatever it is at that time. Like, so whatever it is, that's 50 years of action and thought. That's the product of it. And so it's not that you can't change it by then, but that's, showing you how you've spent your 50 years basically, and how you've reacted to what's happened up to that point. The second thing, what you were saying about, we don't get any emotional training. I was thinking about this for people in my age group, like in mid-20s, early 20s, and up to, if you go to college, so every year up to college, and I'm sure it's the same for you for the years that you went to school, you're almost taught to rely on someone else's way of thinking, for them to tell you what you need to learn, because the curriculum or the system's already shaped so that they have preset modules or tests for what you're going to learn that year. And then it goes up a notch every year, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. And then 15 years of that. So by the time you get to like 22 and you graduate, or 21, now there's no one to tell you what to do each year. What the fuck do you do? Like, I'm lost. I don't know how to do relationships, what job to choose, what career, what business, how do I get a house, or whatever it might be. And by that point, because we've had so much conditioning for allowing others to tell us what to do, we then just jump in. It's painful to take the time to think and reflect, and to avoid fear and failure. We just jump into the next thing that everyone's doing, that my friend's doing. Oh, he pursued this 60K job, or, he bought a property, or whatever it might be. Like, I'm just going to do that. And then it just stops my thinking. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So that's another important thing that from what you were saying. And I try now to treat each person, I don't try and disregard their view, but I see them as like a psychological puzzle. Like, they're coming with their advice from their thoughts and experiences, like their own consciousness level. So if they've failed in business, like your dad, his advice immediately was like, I don't want my son to go through the same pain. So he's coming from an emotional place. Don't repeat, don't do it. But then, you're there thinking, I'm a curious kid. Why? Like, let me just try and see what happens. Obviously other factors come into it, but that's all the things that were going through my mind. So I'm glad that it's, someone that's as established as you shares a similar sort of point of view on life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So, I mean, just going into the second question, which is, if there's one thing that you could write on a piece of paper and it goes into a time capsule for generations from now to read, what would you write to them?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Again, you got some good questions, bro. I would I would tell people to write their goals down, not what society wants for them or what anyone else wants for them. What they truly want, like when they were kids, what they wanted. When we're adults, we tend to drop some of the things that we wanted as kids because we think we can't have them. But I would tell everybody, look, write your goals down every single day. And never stop for the rest of your life. And you will be surprised at, you may change some goals here and there, but the ones that are a part of your fabric, that make you, that you really passionately care about, you will never abandon, because these are things that you just absolutely love. And so when you write these down every single day, they become a part of you, and you vibrate on this frequency of energy. This is some really metaphysical talk right here, but you vibrate on this frequency of energy, and you attract the people, places, opportunities, and things that you need in order to vibe more with that frequency of energy. So have you ever rented a car?
No.
Okay. Have you ever driven a different car that was not your own?
Yes.
Okay, I hope you didn't steal it. But anyhow, were driving it, did you see it anywhere else on the road?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the craziest thing, right? Is that when you're in something, or you're something new, so you can pick up the vibrational frequency of it. So you sense it elsewhere in the world. When you're traveling through the world at some certain speed, like, or at a red light or whatever, you can see it, you can sense it, you can pick up on its vibrational frequency, even if it's a different color, different whatever, but it's the same type of energy, you know? And so when um, and this happens to anybody, like it's some people, they feel it, you know, without even seeing it. Like they're at a red light and they feel it, the energy, and then they like casually look over and they're like, well, there's the same car that I'm driving, you know, like we feel these things because energy is something that's felt more than it's intentionally, you know, processed or like intentionally understood or understood, essentially. So when I write my goals down, or when anyone writes their goals down, they're familiarizing themselves with that likeness of energy. And so they're able to attract it more into their life, and they attract everything about it. So the deeper I go, like I have friends who have these vision boards, and I'm anti-vision board, you know, like I say, that's so cool that you have a nice picture of a car up there. Have you ever touched it, tasted it, felt it, you know, driven it, heard what it sounds like or anything? They're like, no. You know, the whole point is that I stare at it long enough so that one day it's going to show up in my life, you know, and life doesn't work like that. You don't pick up on the vibrational frequency of something by looking at it. You know, you pick up on it by experiencing it. And so I had a friend I told him, go into the dealership, go to ask for a test drive, and he went and he asked for a test drive, and he can never experience that experience. You know, like you can't take it out of you, the way you felt, your emotions, your fears, doubts, certainties, everything that you're feeling at that time, it becomes a part of you, like hardwired, encoded into your DNA, and you can't unexperience it. I can look at a picture once and then look at another picture and forget the old picture, you know, but I can't forget what happened to me, you know, if I experience something. So I would tell them to write their goals down as much as possible, and whatever they write down in their goals, go and try to experience it. Don't take no for an answer. If you go to the dealership and you want to test drive a Ferrari and you don't think you have enough money for it, who cares? You know, at the end of the day, the guy who's working at that dealership has one goal, and that's to earn a commission. And so if you know, make up any kind of bullshit you want to walk into that dealership, and for him to think you're a prospective client and to pull out that car and give you, you know, that test drive, you know, good for you for doing it, because you did it in an unconventional way, you know, and that's all that really matters. Because once you've test driven that Ferrari, if that's the thing that you want, you can't ever unexperience that. Next time you see a Ferrari, you'll feel it, and you'll be like, oh yeah, hey, we're in that likeness of same energy right now, you know, because I've experienced it, I've felt it, tasted it, touched it, you know. And it's not like you see it and then you're like, man, money is evil, you know, and that guy driving that Ferrari is probably a bad person, or something like that, because you've never really vibed on the same energy as something. So
Yeah.
writing the goals and then experiencing whatever it is you write inside those goals, even if it's on a small scale, I would definitely write that in a bottle and pass it on.
No, that's good advice, because it's almost making it like a part of you, you know. So then, bit by bit, 1%, 2% free. You know, the more chance you get just to make it a part of you, eventually it'll just become one with you, and you'll have the thing that you want. So it makes complete sense. So the last and final question is, like, with everything you've gone through, you've now come to the end of your life, whatever age that might be. What's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
I'd love to be remembered as someone who spent as much of his time and effort into making a difference in the world for other people through the value creation, through fighting inequalities, fighting injustice. Like, I think this is like almost like, you know, from an investor side of things, there's a fiduciary responsibility to manage an investment. And from like a human side of things, there's a human responsibility to take care of people in the world and stuff like this, because I'm a firm believer that a lot of the problems we experience are fixable problems. These are not like things that just there's no cure or prevention from. You know, these are things that we can generally get out there and fix. even if we don't fix them 100% or eradicate them in the world, these are things that we can fix. Like, there's one guy super obese from eating too much, and there's another guy who's starving and has no food, and like there's an unbalance in the world. That's all it really is. Like, so if you learn to pick problems that you're really passionate about, you can definitely solve these problems. And if you can solve them for yourself, you can solve them for the world. And it's your duty and responsibility the moment you solve it for yourself to then start to solve it for the world. I'm a big believer in looking at it that way. God puts unique experiences, tests, challenges, trials, setbacks, defeats, failures, all these things into our life, so that once we surpass them, we become a person who can help pull other people up from those things that they're experiencing, that are the same things that we now have achieved some sense of victory over.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think you're well on your way to doing that with everything you've said and the journey that you're on. So if people want to follow and learn more about yourself, what's the best place for them to do that?
So there's the traditional stuff. You can go to like website, you go to Facebook or whatever and stuff like that. I think if you truly want to follow and really get into someone's mind, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I have about like 700 something thousand fans on there. I'm a verified profile. I record stuff in my stories all the time. I share experiences. I talk about certain things. And I think like what social media has done from this side of things is giving us like a private peek behind the scenes of people's lives and who they really are, like not what you see on camera and what you see, staged or whatever else, but like what you see in reality about the person and stuff, even though a lot of social media is staged as well. I know so many people that are retards in real life and then just like, the perfect person on camera. It's like, but yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's Mirza, COMMIRZA. Shoot me a message on Instagram if you guys have any questions or whatever. I actually spend a good amount of time on it. And I have dual purposes. I'm not just wasting my time surfing or whatever, but I get to peek in other friends' lives and entrepreneurs' lives and see what they're up to and different things like that. And we're creating this really crazy agency, influencer agency for social media, which is a pretty cool new concept that we're working on. So I'll be spending more time on it, and I'll be teaching you how we turn people from zero to hero or zero to influencers. And I'll have a whole bunch of influencers with me on the journey doing this. So it's really cool. We have an event coming up. I don't do the masterminds and stuff as much anymore, just because of the timing and the stuff that I'm working on right now and how much that's consuming my time. But this event is like an influencer event. So like, when you see like that perfect picture and that perfect video and like stuff like that, it's not the guy who you see on the video that did that. It's behind the scenes, the photographer, the videographer, the editing team, the visual guys. Like it's the people that made the magic happen behind the scenes that make the person look so good. So I put a team of ninjas together, guys who are good at different things like that. And then we help create their content schedule, their next 1,500 posts they're going to put online and all that stuff professionally, like high production value and quality, right captions, all that cool stuff. So yeah, Instagram is the easiest, best way to find me. I'll probably be pretty active on there for the next year or two anyway, at least till another major platform comes up.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know we've probably gone over time just a little bit, but no, I appreciate all your wisdom and hopefully we'll do this again sometime soon.
Awesome, man. If you are ever in Dubai, hit me up. Would love to host you. I actually live in the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. So I'll give you a really cool kick-ass tour of the place.
Awesome. Yeah, no, would love it. I've been meaning to come out there, but just haven't had the chance yet. So yeah, no, definitely we'll hit you up.
Awesome, man. We'll chat soon. And thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview and got some value from it.